We are back with another episode of Dynasty Theory. What's going on, Mitch?
What's going on, man? Like, everyone was wondering if we're going to do this show today, but the show goes on. The show never ends. Unless you're Dan, then it's, a bi-weekly thing, but that's okay. He's in Florida.
Dan's in Florida. Yes, the show goes on. The newborn is upstairs, not even 48 hours old. And you know what? He would want me to jump on Dynasty Theory this morning. He would want me to be able to provide actionable advice to all of our listeners and viewers. All right, so Mitch, we have an action-packed show today. We have 25 trades we want to get through. I've clumped them together kind of like the overall framework. So like vets for youth, consolidating, slight pivots from, within one position. Because we have so much we want to talk about today, you notice we are jumping on an hour early for the weekly show. Part one, the weekly show here. Then about 9:45-ish or whenever we get to that break point, we're going to jump over to the pivot point, and that is going to be available on the YouTube channel on Tuesday, but it is available to our Dynasty Theory patrons right away, live on YouTube. It's free for 7 days. Come check it out. We have a lot of good things. We've got the Dynasty tiers, the patron channels, the patron trade chat. So there's a lot going on. And if you are watching on YouTube, it helps us out. Hit like, hit subscribe. I don't want to sound like one of those D-bags. Hit that like button, but it does help us out. Anyway, Mitch, did I miss anything?
I think you covered it. I think we're ready to go.
And I see Greg, I see Lurs in the chat. Happy Father's Day to the dads, the stepdads, anybody that's a father figure for anybody. I mentioned this in the chat, but it could be a tough day for some people. And if you're listening to Dynasty Theory and it is a tougher day for you, hopefully we can bring, a little bit of a reprieve from any of that. And you enjoy the show here. Okay. Here we go. To kick us off, and if you're watching on YouTube, when we run through trades, typically we don't really put anything on the screen, but to keep up with the conversation so everybody's not like, oh, what was the trade again? I just put a little banner on the bottom so you can follow along. But Mitch, this is a 12-team Superflex start 10. We got Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, and a 25 second for a 26 first and a highly valuable 25 fourth.
This is one of those you look at, you're like, it's the 26 first, right? Like, we don't even know if Daniel Jones is going to be a quarterback in 4 or 5 months. So it's the 26 first. But at the same time, you're getting the 25 second back with Daniel Jones. And what if Daniel Jones just does enough so he could be a weekly starter for you? So I think I'm going to take the 26 first, but I completely understand the other side of this scenario.
See, that's the way I am too. And again, I don't want to be wishy-washy and say, well, it's team dependent for all of these. And I'm, the goal is here. I'd say 90% of them, I have a hard and fast answer here for you. But for this one, the value, I think, is on the Daniel Jones 25 second side. So if you're looking at it from a pure value, just like, okay, here's the points that you get, whatever resource you use. But if you're not contending, there is certainly risk with Daniel Jones. Pivot off of him, add a little bit of value, get the most valuable piece in the deal in the 26 first. But like you said, Mitch, what if that 25 second ends up being super early? Daniel Jones, who has been a target of mine in pretty much any super flex format, I've been looking to get him thrown into deals, and I found he's typically right around that 25 second value himself. So, like, I don't think it's far off. I understand, just like you said, but to give an answer, I would want the 26 first, just because the deals that I'm attempting to acquire Daniel Jones, it's not going to involve tiering down from an asset. It's going to involve a couple picks that are equaling up to Daniel Jones, maybe a couple flyers on some youthful guys, some rookies that people are excited about. So I think we agree on that one, right?
Yep.
All right, up next, 12-team Superflex. Deebo Samuel and Curtis Samuel for a 25 first and a third. Unless noted otherwise, these are all going to be start 10. So just assume that when we discuss this.
I'm going with the Samuels here. I think Deebo could easily be worth the first himself this year. If he's not if worst case scenario, he's worth like the 24, 202, 203 right now, like worst case scenario, right? I do believe that there could be a point in the season to where Curtis Samuel could be worth the late first. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but he could be the best wide receiver on the Bills this year. And if that's the case, people will want whoever is with Josh Allen. That's who they're going to want. And so Curtis Samuel could be worth that much. So for me, this is a pretty easy Samuels for me because I always assume that this 25 first and third is the team that is trading for these players. And more than likely, Deebo Samuel isn't going to come in and be your wide receiver 1. He's going to be your wide receiver 2 or 3. Then you have Curtis Samuel, who's going to be a flex. So you're immediately improving 2 spots in your starting roster. So yeah, for me, like I said already, it's the Samuels.
We've talked, and I like it's the Samuels, the Deebo and Curtis package. But we've talked about Deebo Samuel. I think he's one of the most undervalued, underrated guys that you can put in your lineup as a contender. And like you said, I do think we all make that assumption that if you're trading picks for a player like Deebo Samuel, Curtis Samuel, we tend to think they're on the later side because if they are ours, that would make sense. Otherwise, why are you acquiring players like Deebo and Curtis Samuel? So for me, just from a value standpoint, if that ends up being like a mid 25 first, and I always talk about there's kind of like 4 buckets. There's picks that it would really take a miracle not to be a top 4 pick. Then there's a mid that could be right off the playoff cusp or sneaks in. And then there's one that we feel fairly confident is going to be a playoff first. And then you could always get a little bit, higher up there, depending on how far you advance in the playoffs. But if it's mid, I'm going to take the pick from a value perspective. If it's late, I love making that acquisition for Deebo Samuel. So I understand the risk. Again, the vets for youth, this whole first section of the show today, I have 5 trades in here. They're all going to kind of go similarly, I think. Like you can make the case that these are going to be trades that make sense. Like I always say, if I saw this trade take place in a league, I wouldn't bat an eye. It wouldn't be a trade I would drop in the channel there on the Discord and be like, oh, well, look at this one, guys. Like, it's fine. It's fine. So I understand both sides, but I'd love from the contender standpoint to go out and get Deebo in a trade like this. Let's see, Greg, what do you got? I made a win now trade in this league before Ron did this trade on his strong team to get these Samuels.
Happens.
It happens. It does happen. And you see leagues it's like an arms race.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mitch makes a trade. I'm like, well, nope, I got to go make a trade. And then it's good though, because it builds parity in the league. It gets the floodgates open. You see teams that are looking to rebuild. They have that opportunity. Teams that are looking to contend, they have that opportunity. Mitch, 12-team Superflex. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans for Will Levis, Lad McConkey, and a 25 third.
See, I think on paper, if you put this in a trade calculator, I bet it's extremely close. I mean, the Baker side might be a little bit higher, but for me, I so far on the Baker side on this because just working in a percentage-based place, right? Will Levis might be worth nothing in 2 months. Baker will be worth something for the rest of this year. Lad McConkey might not be good. I mean, there's a chance to where, yes, the rookie hike will continue to prop up his value, even if he doesn't perform, year one. But Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL and pretty much a Hall of Famer already at this point. So for me, I'm taking the 2 proven assets just because if I am moving off of the vets, I'm not moving them for guys that I don't even know are going to be good in the league, right? And I'm really high on Levis this year. Like, I love what the Titans have put around him and even the offensive line coach, Callahan, that they got, right? Like, everything looks like it's trending in the right direction, but he just might not be any good. So for me, I can't send those good vets for just dice rolls. And it's not even good dice rolls and draft picks. it's like bad dice rolls and players that we don't even know if we like at this point.
There is certainly a risk. It's there. You're not necessarily getting that insulated value that we always talk about with the future draft picks. But aren't you a Will Levis guy?
I like Will Levis, but I think Mike Evans is the factor here for me. Like, I know he's getting older, but he's, a top. Sorry.
Well, here, while you're coughing really quick, Greg says this is the trade with Holler. I didn't know he put this one in. So all these were submitted by our patrons, and I had to cut some out. Some of them were just bragging. Like Kev put in there 10-team Superflex Khalil Shakir for George Kittle. And I'm like, okay, Kev, like I'll give you a pat on the back over at the Devi Royale, but I'm not going to post that because you just completely dominated that trade. Anyway, Greg says I got the Baker side.
Yeah. And like, I am a Levis guy, but I'm not a Levis guy to the point to where I want to give up really good vets for Levis, because we've seen this before. Let's say Levis goes out and has a good year. How much higher does he really get in quarterback rankings? Everyone's going to continue to hate him because he was second round draft pick, right? Second, third, whatever he was.
Early
yeah, and everyone will still keep hating on him for that. So even if he has a good year, it would be like, oh, Hopkins is getting older, Ridley's getting older, he's not going to do as good next year, yada, yada. So I don't think his value can even go up that much higher.
Ron says mayo in your coffee. For that reason, I'm out. I agree with you. I'm on the Baker side. This is another trade. And, so Holler was on the Levis side. Like you said, on paper, like I put this into, I created a little trade calculator through my rankings and my tiers. And there are value adjustments based on how many assets are in each package, where the highest valued assets are in relation to that. And this, I mean, on my notes, I put spot on. It's spot on from a value standpoint. If I have Baker and Mike Evans, though, the move I would be looking to make is either something involving the draft capital, like we talked about, that gives you more of that insulation, more of that flexibility, or I would be looking to maybe package up for a little bit of a higher end dynasty asset. So you go around your leagues, you take a look and maybe see if that's an option. But like we always say, in a year, you might be wishing you acquired Levis and Ladd for an aging veteran wide receiver and Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So there is risk, but it's a risk that makes sense, I think, overall. But I'm with you. I would have liked to see this structured a little bit differently. Holler, don't holler at us in the chat. I'm waiting for that message. Yeah, you sons of bitches. All right, next one. Let's see here. Where's that banner? All right, 12-team Superflex. Half-point tight end premium, start 10. 25 first, 25 second, and Roman Wilson for Najee Harris and Zay Flowers.
I'm on Najee and Zay here. Like, I'm trying to find a reason to do the 25 first because I think Zay Flowers is worth the late 25 first. 25 second plus Roman Wilson. I've talked about this for months. I think Najee is one of the best buys in Dynasty right now because I think that's just what that offense is going to go through. So, yeah, for me, it's heavily Najee and Zay Flowers. I mean, Zay Flowers is the number one for Lamar Jackson. Najee has 10 touchdown upside in this offense as long as, the quarterbacks aren't completely terrible. I don't even know if Roman Wilson is really going to see the field. And then 25 first, sure, but we don't know if it's early, late. You say early, of course I'm going early. If it's late, I'm not taking it late.
See, this is the first one. I'm on the 25 first side.
Really?
I do think, like, you look out there and overall the Najee Harris trade market, it's not that stellar. I do think a lot of the target share in Baltimore is going to be consolidated and funneled through Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. It's just another one for me. I think I would have liked to see this structured a little bit differently. And it's always easier to say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
you don't know what the pieces even are.
No, and it's not always possible. Like
Mm-hmm.
we say, okay, in a typical 12-team league, you have 11 league mates. You have 4 that are rebuilding. So if you're looking to rebuild, it's very difficult to make anything work with them. That leaves you with 7 league mates. You have 3 that kind of want to see how things play out. You have 4 that are true contenders, but 2 of them are always away from their keyboard.
I was just going to say, and half of them aren't even there. So
you leave yourself with 1 or 2 viable trade partners. So when we go through these, it's always like, yeah, I'd like to see it framed a little bit differently. Well, no shit. Sometimes you would like to see it differently, but it doesn't always work out that way. Like, I wish it were a case where every asset is available, like all the time. And well, yeah, this makes sense. So we can get something done, but you need a willing trade partner. But yeah, I do lean the pick side. I think the first for Zay is fair, but again, if we're expecting a lot of that the target share to be concentrated and funneled through the big 2 there, which I think it is. I mean, it seems like Bateman was getting some hype. Now it's saying like Bateman hasn't looked great. No
way.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Him and Burks, man. It's okay. There's always next year.
But yeah, if you're listening to this, because this is the one, I mean, even the other ones here so far, if you disagree with what we've talked about, let us know in the comments, because I think getting the other perspectives, it certainly is a healthy conversation and a discussion that's worth having. But for this one specifically, Mitch is on one side, I'm on the other. Would you be willing to move those picks in a bubble for Najee Harris, who we're not sure how that backfield is going to play out here in 2024 in Pittsburgh, and then Zay Flowers, who we're hoping as a fantasy asset, as a dynasty asset, takes a leap forward. 12-team super flex, +4, -1 quarterback scoring, 2 PPR for tight ends. This is a big one here. Lockett, Mostert, Mixon, Kupp, 25 second for Pickens, 25 first and a 25 third.
This is another one to where I thought I would go with the pick. I really, really did. I'm not. Look, for me, it hinges on what you personally think about Cooper Kupp and what he did last year. As I talked about on the previous episode, I think he's a really good buy going into the next year. So he's not going to be the wide receiver 1 that he was before, but maybe he can continue to be a wide receiver 2. And if you could get that, and you have Mostert, who got like 18 touchdowns last year, Mixon, who could go in and be a very valuable contributor in Houston. Lockett's going to continue to be all right. And I've never been a huge Pickens guy. And I'm not going to be a huge Pickens guy because his quarterback now is Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. And it might get better next year. That's fine. That's cool. But I mean, obviously I'm making a move for this year if I'm getting Mostert, Mixon, and Kupp, right? I'm not too worried about what 2026 is going to look like. So I'm going with the vets.
So here is my thing with a trade like this. And we get a lot of trade polls in the chat that are kind of geared towards this overall thought, where you're getting all of these veterans, and as long as he's healthy, Mostert's going to produce, Mixon's going to produce, Kupp, you're expecting a bounce back. I am as well. But if you're making a move like this, okay, I'm a contender, I'm looking to add all these players, what is your roster looking like in the first place? Because if these are all kind of nice to haves, I'm probably holding on to Pickens in the first, because I think there's going to be an opportunity as the season approaches where we get more information. We see who's healthy. We talk about this pretty much every week, but the more information we have, the easier it is and less difficult of a decision to move on from those picks. I'm very hesitant to make a move where, yes, the value is certainly on the player side. Like, hell, how far off is that 25 first and second really going to be?
Mm-hmm.
If I think that there is a good chance that those are very close together, it's an absolute no-brainer for me that I would go the player side. It's the timing of this deal. So we talk about like the framework of these deals. We talk about the way we're approaching it. It's just the timing here. And if I'm looking for a Mostert or Mixon, let's say I'm weak at running back, wide receivers are really solid. Can I just do something for Mostert and Mixon?
Yeah, it's weird, but like you brought up, these veteran players, their values aren't really going to go up in the next month.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just wait and see how the rest of your, I mean, maybe this trade isn't available in a month, but if you're able to wait and see and be like, oh, hey, Kupp doesn't suck. Maybe, okay, we're all right. Or maybe he goes out and Kupp is injured the first 3 weeks of training camp again. And you're like, well, don't want him anymore.
Yeah, the value certainly could shift, but also there is that risk that another contender goes out and makes this acquisition.
Exactly. That trade might not be there in a month, so sometimes you just got to jump on it.
Yeah. But again, value for me is on that pick side or player side. The only thing that would really change it is if I was moving somebody else's 25 first and that team was a mess. Yep. You know, at that point, I certainly would look to reframe this. Like, could you do Pickens in the third just for Kupp in the second?
Yeah, I think that would be a much better trade.
So if you're looking to get a little bit more insulation with the pick, get maybe nearly identical production here or more production from Kupp, and then not have to bring on the AARP club in Lockett and Mostert. And, you know, we're still expecting big things from Mixon in that offense. I want to skip over in the show notes, Mitch, this crazy trade.
Can we just
we're going to get to it.
Oh, okay.
But I want to skip over it. That's going to be our breaking point. So we're going to hit, honestly, probably the craziest trade I've ever seen. And it's not, honestly,
it's funny.
Well, we'll get to it. I don't want to talk about too much, but I think there's about 25 assets involved.
Yeah, and I know I was on one side and like half the Discord was like, how can you be on that side? I'm like, I don't know. I just am.
Well, we'll get into it. Again, I don't want to tease for too long here, but probably about 20 minutes. We'll get to it. So 12-team Superflex, half-point tight end premium, CeeDee Lamb, Cade Otton, and a 25-second, or Lamar Jackson and Diontae Johnson.
Lamar and Diontae. I mean, I love CeeDee Lamb. I think he has probably the best chance to be the wide receiver one this year. I think Dallas is going to pass like crazy. He's going to get 150, 160 targets. I think that's probably close to where he'll be. But, I mean, Otton, there was multiple games last year to where he had like 4 points, 5 points, 6 points. He is not, I mean, I think his name value is there because he kind of had a few games as a rookie that was pretty good. But he hasn't been a good fantasy contributor. So for me, it's pretty much Lamb for Lamar and Diontae with that second added in. And don't really know how that's all going to work with Carolina with all of the pass catchers that they moved in. But Diontae Johnson's a guy who just earns targets. Granted, he doesn't earn targets far down the field. I mean, they're all going to be 10-yard pop shots, but he's just a guy you could continually go, hey, he's going to get 5 catches this game. He's going to get 5 catches this game. Then one game he might have 8. I mean, Cade Otton might not get a pass thrown to him all game. And I mean, I was looking at him yesterday. It's just, he's not a big fantasy contributor for whatever reason. I don't know if it's a Baker thing. I don't know if it's an offense thing, but for whatever reason, Cade Otton isn't a real fantasy contributor. So, you know, I'm very easily sticking with Lamar and Diontae on this.
Yeah, that's the same for me as well. Does it switch for you? Like if we could move from Otton, and this is a 0.5 tight end premium. Mm-hmm. If we would move from Otton to, let's see here, tier above, Otton to Freiermuth?
No, because it's still Lamar. Lamar is still the MVP of the league, right? If you're going to make a bet on which quarterback's going to have the most points scored this year, he's probably in the top 2 or top 3, right? And we assume Lamb's going to be the top wide receiver, but there's going to be other guys that are extremely close to him. Lamar's just one of those guys that could break every single week. So I'm sticking with Lamar. I mean, if you're going to go off, I don't have your tiers pulled up.
What if it's Evan Engram?
Then yes, I would go with Evan Engram because I believe he's giving you a weekly positional advantage, right? To where, I mean, Pat Freiermuth, we're still hoping that he's going to get targets, right?
Dallas Goedert, and then we'll wrap this one up.
Goddard would be great. Yep.
All right. As it stands there, I prefer the Lamar side as well. And I don't think it's like an egregious trade whatsoever.
No.
It's just preference, roster construction. For me, I'd rather get that high-end quarterback than the high-end wide receiver and then sprinkle in Diontae Johnson on the side. All right. 12-team super flex. Simple one. James Cook or DK Metcalf?
These are fun. I'd love to say, hey, if I need a running back, I'll go James Cook. Not really. I'm probably just going to keep DK Metcalf in most leagues. I think he's one of those not quite alpha wide receivers, but he just brings something else that every other wide receiver doesn't bring in this league. I mean, he's just huge, fast. I'll always go back to when he ran down that Cardinal. I think it wasn't it Bubba Baker, if I remember right. Buda Baker. Yeah, that's Buda? Right. Yeah. But I mean, that play will always be in the back of my mind. That's not plays that anybody else in this world can make. And so, I mean, and I love DK Metcalf. I have him on a lot of teams. I'm buying him throughout this offseason. And I like James Cook. I like him. But I don't ever think, was he good from like halfway point last year through the playoffs? Without a doubt, he was. But the Bills have continually tried to add to that backfield. They've done a horrible job doing it, but they've continued to try to improve that running back 2 spot. So maybe with Davis this year, maybe they've actually done it. But for me, everything they're showing is like, hey, they really don't want a number 1. They want a 1A, 1B backfield. They've just done a bad job at doing it. But I think moving forward, I think it's going to be much better.
I would go DK Metcalf for additional context. I think I'd want a 2-3 swap in there. So James Cook in a
that's fair.
2, DK Metcalf in a 3, and then I switch. So the value's not far off at all. If it's a start 3 running back league, I'll switch to James Cook. If you're getting any type of point per carry, I'll switch to James Cook. Lurs in the chat, going back to CeeDee Lamb, he had 180 targets last year. Does he have more or less, Mitch?
More.
I think if he plays the same amount of games, he played all 17, I think he's right at that 200 mark, as crazy as it sounds. Yeah. I think that's very reasonable. And then Kevin, where'd that comment go? He is a contender, 12-team super flex. Should he trade his Xavier Leggett and then work on a plus for Najee? Other running backs are Achane, Pollard, Rachaad, and Charbonnet.
I mean, my issue with his other running backs, I want to see the rest of that team but would I move Leggett, however you say it, do a plus for Najee? Yes, I'll do that in most scenarios. But I do worry about a team that has Achane, Pollard, Rachaad, and Charbonnet as like the running backs, right? Because you can get Najee and start him with Achane. I mean, I know Dan's still huge on Pollard. I'm not high on Rachaad at all. Charbonnet is kind of a whatever back to me. So I want to make sure the rest of that team is set up to compete if I'm going to make that move for Najee. But, in a bucket, yes, I will move Leggett plus whatever for Najee.
I'd even add Rachaad.
Oh, yeah. I'd be more than happy to.
Because honestly, I still think Khalil Herbert's a screaming buy.
Mm-hmm.
We know, I almost said Taylor Swift. Oh my God. We know DeAndre Swift does not have a clean bill of health in the past. Not that any running back truly does, but I think Khalil is an interesting one. So That's where we are. 12-team super flex, 0.1 PPC, 2 tight ends, and an extra point for tight end premium. Start 11. And Mitch, you've shared your disdain of 2 tight end leagues.
Oh, dude, I hate them so bad.
I'm going to start up. I just took Sam LaPorta at 102.
Dude, they're just dumb because the problem is I think the thought behind it is great, but trading for tight ends is absolute hell. Like it sucks. Like I gave up Jalen Polk yesterday for Colby Parkinson, and it's not because I wanted to. It's because you can't get tight ends in those leagues. So it's like, hey, if you see one that could hopefully give you points and you only have 2, you need to go make a trade. Like you can't leave that spot empty and just collect zeros all year. So like I hated the trade, but I made it. And I'm never going to join another 2 tight end league. I don't think they're fun. I think I could go on for days about this, but I absolutely hate those league setups.
Really quick, we're at 408 in a current startup. 2 tight ends, 2 PPR for tight ends.
You have to have them.
It's a 12-teamer. So we're at the 408. How many tight ends do you think have gone in the first 43 picks?
7.
12.
Oh my.
12. Jake Ferguson just went off at 407. And based on the league, it makes sense. I was looking at David Njoku at the beginning of the 4th until I traded out. Like, I was ready to hit draft.
See,
and I traded out. It's also start 12. So some other things going on there. Anyway, back to this trade. Chuba Hubbard, Amari Cooper, and Cade Otton. You can't get away from Cade Otton. And we can't get away from Najee Harris and Diontae Johnson. For Najee Harris and Diontae Johnson.
I'm trying to talk myself into the Amari and Chuba side because I do like Amari. But I'm still on Najee and Diontae here. I don't think like I said, this Otton is what you have to do because Otton has like real value in that league when he shouldn't be started in really any fantasy league for a while. So we've already talked about Najee and Diontae. Amari Cooper, I think he's a very good wide receiver 1 for the Browns. I mean, he had a 50-point week last year. He could give you multiple 20-point weeks throughout the season. Chuba, he's way too cheap, man. I know everyone thinks that he's going to be like the running back 2. I think he's going to be the running back 1 through September and October on that offense. So saying that though, Najee's going to score more points. Deontay's really good, so I'm going to go there.
On my notes, I have values perfectly even, but I want the Diontae side. Now I'm second guessing myself.
Cade Otton might go in the 5th round of that startup you're in.
Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he's gone before the 9th round. I'm going to stick with the Diontae side, but that 2 PPR start 2 tight ends, it is very challenging to get tight ends. So I think kind of cop-out answer, whoever my other tight ends are kind of comes into play here. But in a bubble, I'll go Najee and Diontae. And I see Lurs is in the chat. He's one of our resident 2 tight end, 2 PPR gurus. Most of the leagues he plays in are that format. And we have a lot of fun discussions. And it's brutal in those streets, man, trying to get a tight end. It is so tough. 12-team super flex, start 10, +4, -1 quarterback scoring, +1 tight end premium. Sam LaPorta and Michael Penix for Rachaad White, Devon Achane, and Will Levis.
Value fine. Value fine. Value side, it's fine. I mean, it's a lot of these trades are super even. But if you want to come get my Sam LaPorta, I'm not doing Rachaad White and Will Levis, even though I do like Achane. Sam LaPorta is so much better than 98% of the tight ends. And look at the other side of it. Rachaad White. Yeah, we like him. They gave him a lot of work last year. He's probably going to get a lot of work this year too, but we have absolutely no faith that he's going to continue to get that year after year. Will Levis might not be the starter in 4 months. Achane, absolutely love the dude. There is no way he could keep up what he did.
8+ yards per carry.
Yeah, there's just no possible way. And I love the guy. I said, coming out of Texas A&M, I know he's small. He's going to be very good in the NFL because he was very good in the SEC. But, I mean, they keep adding running backs to that backfield. He's never going to be a guy that gets the ball 15 to 20 times a week. And Sam LaPorta is a guy that gives you such a positional advantage over every other team in the league. Especially, let's say you have a LaPorta and then you have a Goddard with it, right? If you could just have 2 of those top end guys, but you have the one guy and you have one a little bit over him. So that means there's 3 or 4 other teams in the league that don't even have a top 10 guy. You are so far ahead of them. And I don't think any of the other guys that are on the other side, you could even say that about for a second.
This isn't an indictment on any of the pieces. Like I have so much Rachaad White, Devon Achane. We were both above market on him coming into rookie drafts last year. But there's too much risk in that whole side. 2 running backs, no matter how good they are, and Will Levis, just question marks galore. Give me Sam LaPorta. And honestly, in 2 years, I think there's a very good chance that Michael Penix is valued higher than Will Levis straight up. Like,
yeah,
it could be in 1 year.
It could.
It
could really be in 3 months, to be honest. It really could with Will Levis.
I mean, it could be tomorrow. We don't know. Maybe not.
We'll wait till training camp. Training camp, anyways.
All right. 12-team Superflex, start 11, plus 0.75 tight end premium. Evan Engram and Daniel Jones for Luke Musgrave, Jordan Addison in a 26-second.
See, I think this is a trade that could get done in most leagues, to be honest. And I want Engram and Daniel Jones pretty heavily here. Like, I love Addison, right? But Addison was really good.
This is my trade. This is me.
Oh, was it really? Nice. So I like Addison. I don't know. You love Addison. You have his helmet right over your shoulder there. Isn't it over there? No, that's the James Conner one, huh? Oh yeah,
Addison gets a little
Addison.
Little. I got a little Addison, a little Montgomery. They not spending the big bucks on them, but still little Addison.
That's fair. But I like him. Who knows how well he's going to do with the combo of Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy, right? Maybe they can't support 2 good wide receivers, and I think there's a decent chance that they don't. Luke Musgrave is who even knows at this point. But Evan Engram is giving you he was tight end 3 last year. Is that right?
3 or 4.
Pretty close. Yeah, he was pretty close to that. Daniel Jones is the guy to where he's going to start this year. I mean, without a doubt, he's starting all year. And maybe Malik Neighbors is good enough to prop him up and make him a viable fantasy starter, which as long as Daniel Jones can't keep running without getting injured, I think he's going to be okay. I mean, the backfield and Singletary, who knows, right? But besides that, it's Daniel Jones for me.
And it was the classic. I believe this was was it Remdog? I can't remember who's one of our patrons, but it's a classic. He's looking to rebuild, get a little bit younger. I was looking to get a 3rd quarterback there, or maybe a 4th quarterback. Can't remember. And then just get the point per game production from Evan Engram, where Luke Musgrave's going to have every opportunity, especially with Tucker Kraft out. But we know that Green Bay, they've really spread out the target distribution there with Jordan Love and all of the weapons there. And then Jordan Addison, realistically, is he going to take that step forward and ever be a difference maker? Cover your ears, Jordan, little Jordan helmet. I don't think so. I don't think so. So I was happy to make the move. But again, it's one of those that makes sense both sides. A lot of people that are geared more towards the youthful assets are probably smashing the Luke Musgrave side. So like you said, it's certainly a trade that could get done in a lot of situations. All right, 10-team Superflex, 0.75 tight end premium. We have Geno Smith, Mark Andrews, A.J. Brown, Tony Pollard for Devin Singletary, Jordan Love, Trey McBride, Kendre Miller, and 210. So 20th overall rookie pick there.
This one's tough, man. I started this one quite a bit yesterday trying to figure out what side I would for surely go on. So I'm like, who's the best player right now, fantasy-wise, in this? In 1.75, for me, it's McBride. Who's the second best? Love or A.J. Brown?
A.J. Brown, in 10-team Superflex, I lean A.J. Brown.
Yeah, it's close, though, right?
Yeah.
But then after that, it's Geno. We've seen how much people value him. Pollard's whatever. I like Andrews, but people just don't have a huge value on him. And you're getting Kendre. I think Kendre could be kind of a swinging factor for me in this. I'm not very high on Kamara this year. I don't really have much faith in him ever being what he was. And you're getting the 210 added on. So I'm pretty happy with McBride and Love in this scenario.
I prefer, without any additional context, I prefer the AJ Brown side.
Ooh, look at us disagreeing.
I prefer the AJ Brown side. I think from a point per game production over the next 2 to 3 years, Andrews and McBride. Sure, your Andrews' value, it doesn't matter what he does on the field. It's like it's never going to go up at this point.
Right. Yeah.
But 10-team super flex, if I feel good with my quarterbacks, I certainly am not saying Jordan Love is a whatever. Like he's not. But in that format, 10-team super flex, I'm not necessarily looking to have all that much value in my quarterback position, as long as I can at least have one anchor piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm sitting there, let's say I have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, any of the top guys, I'm more willing to move Jordan Love there. Now, if I'm sitting there with Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones.
Hey, you looked at a lot of my teams.
I would switch. I would take the Jordan Love side. But as long as I feel good about my quarterback situation, give me the AJ Brown and Andrews side.
I like it.
All right. Well, I did not make a graphic for this one, but
it would take up the whole page.
Yeah. I mean, let's see if I can add it here really quick. Get a banner, create a banner. I can't even fit one side. No, you get 200 characters. So here we go. 12-team Superflex. Start 11. 1.5 PPR for tight ends. And there was some like little bonuses and everything. So I'm going to read the whole trade, but then I'm going to pare it down to really what matters. Deshaun Watson, Cam Akers, Kadarius Toney, Alec Pierce, Daniel Bellinger, Deuce Vaughn, Davis Allen, Will Mallory, 425 firsts, 226 firsts, 226 seconds, and a 25 fourth for Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Jordan Love, Cooper Kupp, Bijan Robinson, Christian Watson. When you just hear that, right away you're thinking, that's almost a starting lineup.
It is.
Kelce, Tyreek, Kupp, Love, Christian Watson, Bijan. You are, I don't want to say gifting somebody a title run, but it's close to that. But once you start to break down the value in the pieces, so really, Deshaun Watson, 6 firsts, 2 seconds for Kelce, Tyreek, Kupp, Love, Christian Watson, Bijan Robinson. What was your initial thought when you first saw the trade? And then how did you kind of, once you start to dig in a little bit more, it's a batshit crazy trade.
This was brought up in the Discord as a, hey, I'm commissioner of this league. Mm-hmm. How off do you think this trade is? And after looking at it, I'm on the Deshaun Watson side of this. But I got to say, it's the overarching. I would prefer to win in Dynasty, right? But let's just talk about, let's say I had the Kelce side and I wasn't confident that I was the best team in the league, right? I felt like I needed to make a move. I love the health of this league to continue forward. So for me, it's the 6 first and Watson, right? So Watson's value, whatever. But what will happen is I have to assume that the person moving all these vets is either acquiring their first back or they already have their first for future years. So if you look at this and you could say maybe they have 7 firsts now or 8 firsts, depending on how you look at it, but they could guarantee that some of their firsts are going to be early because they're making their team this much worse, right? They're not trying to contend. Then all of a sudden you're like, well, hey, this team now has 425 first, but they also have the 101 or the 102. In 26, they have the 102, 103 with 2 extra firsts. Then all of a sudden, I think it changes what everyone's thinking. It's like, all right, are any of those other players worth? Bijan probably is. Love probably is, but are any of the other ones worth that early of a first? Probably not. So when you start to look at it as what, not just the value that's in the calculator, but how it's going to look in 1 year, in 2 years, it puts me pretty firmly on the Watson side.
When I first saw the trade, I was like, okay, this is the players. And just to reiterate again, I couldn't fit even one side on the banner here, but it was Deshaun Watson, 7 additional low end pieces, 425 first, 226 first, 226 seconds for Kelsey, Tyreek, Kupp, Love, Christian Watson, and Bijan Robinson. 12-team Superflex, start 11, 1.5 PPR for tight ends. So just high level, this is how I broke it down. And you made a really good point. Some of these are going to be early, and it's really going to push your own first to be early. But I put down let's assume mid for all of these. Watson, mid 25 first, mid 26 first for Jordan Love. I think that kind of ties out. Like, either people want Watson or they absolutely hate him. And there's people that would still say that's too little for Jordan Love.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's kind of okay. We could say that's somewhat equal. 25 first for Travis Kelce. Now it's kind of take your stand on Kelce, ride him into the ground. But if you're looking to rebuild, I think a mid 25 first is more than fair, especially 1.5 PPR for tight ends. 25 first and 26 second for Tyreek, like it's in the ballpark. Mid 25 first for Kupp and Christian Watson, it's in the ballpark. That leaves a 26 first and a 26 second and Bijan Robinson. So I am still, Mitch, on the player side, but like I just think you could get more piecing this out.
I completely agree. Like, and yes, you are making your startup lineup better. You, without a doubt, you are. But is it going to be enough to push you over the top? Because you are giving up all of your future. You can guarantee that this team doesn't have a draft pick left, because if they did, they probably would have added it on. So I think every single draft pick was moved, and you're basing your next 2 years on Kelce, Tyreek, and Cooper Kupp. I mean, it'll probably work out okay.
And that's something I would like to see too, like you said, and we brought up on previous trades. What did that starting lineup look before making this trade?
Yeah.
And I would have a hard time to believe that the person moving all these veterans didn't have a contender as is.
Yeah. I mean, there must have been,
unless that was it.
Maybe Jordan Love was their quarterback, right? And it's like, okay, well, I don't have any running backs outside of Bijan. I have Kelce, but I don't trust him, and I want to just move. Dude, I really like the draft picks on this. I really do.
But if out of those 6 firsts, if one ends up being super early, we get like one at the 104, 105, couple mids, couple lates. Like that is going to shift the way this is framed, because in early 25 first, you could say for Kupp and Tyreek, I'm just don't get caught up on the name, but it really just takes one of these to be early to make it shift.
Yep. And all of these other players added in, this was brought up in the Discord. I completely agree. These were all just the players that they had to be added in to get this trade to finish. Because sometimes you can't do those unequal trades in certain league settings. So Bellinger, Vaughn, Davis, Allen, those are just the droppable pieces. So don't think they brought any real value to the table.
Bellinger, I'm not saying he's adding a ton of value.
I mean, yeah, he could be. But Theo Johnson.
Whatever, Daniel Bellinger is the most valuable of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players coming back. Wes says, if I recall, the person getting the picks won the league last year. That's right. He did. Yes. That answers that question. So maybe it's a situation where, hey,
I got my money.
The league.
Yeah.
I know what's down the road here with assets like Kelce, Tyreek, Kupp. Maybe I've explored opportunities. Like I said, I would love to see this framed a little bit differently. I'd love to split up the assets. Maybe he tried and couldn't. But I think it's a hell of a trade.
It's
like
fun.
I said, we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 23 pieces in the trade.
It's pretty good.
23 pieces. All right. Well, like I said, we still have 15 trades to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to jump over to the pivot point. We're going to work through maybe 10. I forgot that one section we covered already. We're going to be talking about some trades where folks packaged up and they look to get a high-end piece. And then we're going to wrap it up with some positional pivots where there was a small tier down and you were looking to maximize value. So we want to thank everybody for tuning into the weekly episode. Like I said, jump over to the Dynasty Theory Patreon. And if you're looking to watch the pivot point live moving forward, if you're looking to get that early access, it's available. So we'll see you guys there. Peace.